Okay, we'll do it live.
We're live on YouTube.
I have the one new like if we want to do that.
All right.
Sup, YouTube.
Do. All right. We're live.
Another
Start up.
beautiful 81-degree day with 75% humidity here in
Disgusting.
Connecticut.
It's freaking disgusting.
Connecticut autumn.
Cold.
And New England Patriots are winning today.
Mhm.
All right. Ready, boys?
Wearing
Yes.
my jersey.
5, 4,
Wearing my Patriots
3,
underwear.
2. Hello and welcome to the Freemasons podcast with your host, Right Worship Brother George Mudgery.
Worship Brother Joe.
And worshipful brother Ken.
We're up here today, and today's topic, episode 149, Alternate Universe. What if the Morgan Affair never happened? Sweet, sweet Lucinda.
Yeah.
But anyway, first thing we're going to cover some likes. Mr. Joe.
Yes, so we have one new like since we've last met on Thursday, and that is one Colin Hill. Colin Hill, thank you for the new like, Colin Hill.
Nice simple
Nothing
name.
but softballs. Nothing but softballs. It kind of aggravates me a little bit.
I just make it look easy.
Mhm.
Anyway, let's toast them.
All right,
Ooh.
Joe, you're in charge.
because I'm in charge. You need to. Ken needs to charge and align his camera.
Sorry. And it's like, it's almost like we do the same formula every episode.
Almost.
And yet we still forget things.
Wow, giving yourself a little heavy pour there.
Not really. We should have a little checklist or something. Okay.
All right, brothers, right hand to arms.
To arms.
Ready.
Ready.
Aim.
Aim.
Fire. Good fire. Fire all. Together, brothers.
Vivat, vivat, vivat.
But we can still do a synchronized toast. So that's something. That's a thing.
Yeah, you can still do it.
Yeah, it's been tested.
Kid tested, mother approved.
Well, we're gonna have one of those days. We're gonna have one of those days.
You
Yeah,
guys
we're-
are already in each other's
We're like
heads.
in sync today. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
It's like I'm like Justin Timberlake, and you're like Joey Fatone.
What?
In sync. Justin Timberlake, Joey
all
Fatone.
right. Yeah.
And those guys like fight all the time.
That one slipped.
Some of them did, but
We usually do, me and Joe.
you're
it's
Fatone
fine.
because I think
Fair enough.
Fatone was the least talented of the group, so
Yeah.
that's why you're him.
Nice.
I'm the pretty boy.
Debatable. Anyway, alternate universe. What if the Morgan Affair never happened? So first thing we're going to do is we're going to go a little history about what the Morgan Affair was. We've covered this on a prior episode, but we'll give a brief synopsis. So Ken, why don't you give us a brief synopsis of the Morgan Affair?
All right. So there was a historic happening, which I don't actually know all the details of the Morgan Affair itself, but eventually it turned into a generalized kind of hatred toward Freemasonry by a certain subset of the United States. And in fact, it was so pervasive that it became its own political party.
Uh-huh.
It's
I
the
know there was
first
murder
third party
involved.
in the United States.
Yeah. Yeah, the first third party, which is,
Mhm.
I guess, pretty notable. And because of that, a lot of, well, I don't really want to go into all of the blowback from it, but there was a lot of traditions and secrecy that came out of that because a lot of people didn't want to, a lot of Masons who were affiliated with the fraternity didn't want to show their affiliation with the fraternity. And there was just a lot of general aggression toward Masonic lodges as a result of the formation of that political party. And they actually got quite a bit of clout.
Yeah,
for
we
being the first third party.
we lost a lot of membership around that time. Many lodges went dark.
Yep.
You have to, I guess, I mean, it's safe to say that prior to the Morgan Affair, I think Freemasonry was pretty well held in high regard, I would have to say. I mean, all of our founding fathers are Freemasons, all part of lodges. I mean, it was kind of like pretty prestigious, I think, prior to the Morgan Affair. I don't think of any reason why it wouldn't be until William Morgan, who still up in the air on whether or not he was a Freemason. I don't think we ever definitively figured that out. He said he was part of lodges, but then when people went back to check his credentials, if you will,
Right.
he was chased out of a couple lodges because he couldn't prove that he was.
But he
Which
clearly knew the ritual.
Clearly
he
knew
knew
the
the
ritual.
ritual, and He
Right.
was he had threatened to publish it, which was the whole reason why he disappeared. And members of a
Yep.
particular lodge in upstate New York were tried for his murder, and a
Mhm.
few of them were convicted.
Yeah. I think it
which-
was on lack of. There was no evidence, though. I don't think.
I think something ended up happening where they either didn't serve very long, or it got thrown out, or something happened. They didn't. They didn't serve their. Back then, just like now, you have your conspiracy theorists and people that question the motives of something that's quote unquote secret.
Correct.
And it just kind of lit the fuse of this big anti-Masonic bomb. Really stirred up some opinions there, and people latched onto it. I
And I
mean,
think me and Joe have pretty much definitively come to the belief that it was Lucinda,
yes, absolutely.
because
Yeah.
his wife Lucinda Pendleton.
She's the devil.
She went through like 5
Lucinda the
husbands.
devil.
Mama said Lucinda Pendleton's the devil.
What the hell was it? 3 husbands she had? She showed her
Oh,
movies to 3 husbands, and they're all dead too.
It was like 4 or 5. Though. I mean, she's been.
Well, she was tied to William Morgan, Joseph Smith.
Yep. Mhm.
She was tied to Brigham Young. I don't know if she ever married him. And then
Right.
there was, I guess, who she decided to settle down with.
Well, then again, I mean, that was polygamy at the time, so I mean,
Yeah.
they were.
I think that's only for guys, though. I don't think the women got to do that.
I mean,
I'm just saying.
I'm not trying to sound sexist here, but I mean, maybe back in the day they traded them like baseball cards. I don't know. It's I don't know. Anyway,
I don't know. Let's
moving
move
on before I get something thrown at me.
You should probably do.
No, but so this event happened, the Morgan affair. I
Mhm.
think it's safe to say that prior to this event, Masonry was held in high regard.
And it was flourishing.
It was
We could
flourishing.
even say it was flourishing.
So imagine if the Morgan affair never happened.
Right.
Where would we be? And I think the first place I would go is you might even see, and this is my opinion, a Masonic political party. Reason being is because the anti-Masonic political party came out shortly after this whole event.
Mhm.
Masonry was held in high regard. I mean, look, for instance, Andrew Jackson, who was no saint by any shape of the form of the word, but he was a Mason.
Yeah.
You also
Yeah.
had, with some other, was Woodrow Wilson? I don't think he was he? No. The
I know
guy,
Taft
Truman,
was.
Truman,
Truman,
Yep.
Ford,
Roosevelt. So I mean,
both Roosevelts. Yeah.
both Roosevelts. So I mean, it still remained a thing. The anti-Masonic party kind of dived off.
Yeah, I think that's
afterward.
where it kind of really went into the shadows a bit even
Right.
more. Where
Right.
as secretive as it was,
Mhm.
you might not have been super open about your membership. It really
Yeah.
contracted at that
Yeah.
point.
Mhm.
Almost kind of went underground.
Yeah. So I would honestly say that you'd probably see at least a Masonic political party, and or it would be more to the forefront of what it is now. People are like, oh yeah, he's a Mason. I know Mason.
Right.
So-"
Right.
Whereas now it's like, you're a what? A Mason? So what? You're going to build my sidewalk? It's like, no, I'm not building your sidewalk.
Now, I think there were a couple of events that kind of cast Masonry in a somewhat negative kind of conspiratorial light and caused us to go create traditions where we kind of go a little bit more underground and don't wear lapel pins and don't, and I think one of them was the Second World War.
Right.
Now, it would be interesting to consider whether or not Hitler would have been as outspoken about Masonry had the Morgan affair not occurred prior. I
Correct.
don't know how much his opinion was informed by that.
He
But
might
I
have,
think
he might have
mostly-
just been striking a nerve. Like,
Yeah,
hey,
well-
this has come up before. Let me rekindle this
Yeah.
argument.
But fascist governments in general don't like secretive organizations that meet together and, inspire free thought. So I guess you could go either way on that and say he would have had the same opinions.
I think
Regardless.
that I think if the Morgan affair never happened, I mean, because there was already a negative light on Freemasonry because of the Morgan affair. I think that if that event never happened and Hitler was trying to portray the Masons as whatever he did,
Evil or
bad, people are like, the hell is this guy? No, he's freaking,
Would've
he's
had to
off the
work
deep
a
end
lot
because these
harder,
guys are
yeah.
good. Yeah,
Right.
he would have had to have worked a lot harder in order for us to look bad, I guess you can say.
Yeah, because the Morgan affair happened late 1820s. So, and like you said, lodges went dark completely, turned in their charters.
Yep.
Certainly, well, we kind of touched on this the other night. Certainly seems like our ritual changed quite a bit. It got a little bit homogenized coming out of when Lodge started to open back up. So what if that never happened? What if Freemasonry continued to flourish? How would that, if at all, impacted the Civil War? Maybe, I don't know, because the Civil War was only 20 or so years after that.
We would have missed out on that membership decline during that entire period. That entire.
So would that have tilted the balance
so.
one way or the other?
I don't think it. If anything, I think you would have had a Civil War that happened, if not sooner or not at all, because it's hard to say. I mean, that's a tough one, but Freemasonry is all about equality and all that stuff, and everyone meets on the level. Doesn't matter, whatever. So I think maybe, granted, you might not have a Civil War. I think if Freemasonry flourished more and made its way into more of the Southern hearts,
what if that equality piece just continued to grow?
Yep. Back on what I was saying. Ritual.
Yeah.
We talked about how the ritual kind of got muddied up, I guess you could say. It wasn't as...
It was kind of...
politically corrected.
It was corrected after the Morgan affair, right?
So think about the part that we talked about just the other night. Because you have this Morgan affair, you have this anti-Masonic party that think Masons are going to overthrow the government and take charge. And then, surprisingly enough, once we come back and Masonry comes back after that, it includes a piece saying that you will not countenance rebellion or you'll cheerfully submit to your government.
Yeah.
Those things that were all added after that affair.
Was it cheerfully submit to the government?
I believe so.
Yeah, we got into it.
We got to look at the history.
We got into a heated argument.
Cheerfully submit.
We got into a heated Pauly Senior and Pauly Junior argument about this after. That wasn't heated. We were all just.
No, it was a good debate.
We had to shut off the podcast. Yeah. And there was a Pauly Junior and Senior moment where you're going to have to make a meme about that.
Okay, I can do that.
Well, there were definitely certain bits that were added after the Morgan affair, but I don't know how deep that goes. Like, I'd love to see how the ritual. This is obvious. We could do this.
Yeah,
we could go to Grand Lodge and look through the ritual and see how it changed over the years. But man,
and I think that piece about and without getting specific, I think the piece about the penalties was also added around.
That was after the Morgan affair. Yeah.
I have to go back to this meme in my head because I'm already picturing it. Pauly Senior with his finger out like this. Obviously saying it says cheerfully submit.
Yeah,
and then it says murder and treason.
That was basically how the conversation went, I guess, too.
Yeah, it was. Brother Greg Schultz, sorry, it's blurry. The kids were on the internet. I kicked them off and threw them down the stairs. No, I'm kidding. I would never hurt my children. But I made them.
But you let them hurt each other.
You guys all have 4G on your phones, right?
4G.
Show back 4G. Oh, the new one is 5G, like
LTE,
4G LTE, whatever. It's the same thing. I'm not trying to
Well, there was LTE and then 2G
a commercial
LTE,
here.
Anyway, thinking about going back to this whole thing with the Morgan affair, if it never happened, imagine that old ritual carrying over. Because if you go on the internet and you Google some images, right, of like Master Mason, and they show the one guy laying on the checkerboard with all the swords pointed at him.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What the hell was that all about? Well, that's prior to the Morgan affair. So clearly,
that might have
ritual was probably altered or changed in some bit. Even the wording of it is different. It's been changed. I don't even know what the hell the last revisitation was, but
that could have been even something from Duncan's ritual monitor and stuff too. There were variations obviously over the years of our ritual, and it wasn't always necessarily the one embraced by each of our jurisdictions. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see if that was a thing.
Now the question is, did Duncan's monitor ritual pull from the old ritual?
Duncan's was published in 1866.
Yeah.
So about 40 years after
Okay.
the Morgan affair.
When was our ritual published?
Well, it's been revised.
Been revised
Many,
and
many-
revised
yeah.
and revised
And there's
revised.
history of all that. Like there's
Right.
revisions going on, text revisions.
I would
going
love
all
to
the way
know
back.
what the earliest revision is. The first time it
Yeah.
was ever put into paper.
Well,
basically.
talk to some of your boys up in New Haven. You know,
Mm.
Worcester Lodge.
Although
one's
their
gotta
ritual
have,
is different.
I mean, on top of that,
but
though,
they have to have something
they also didn't.
predating the
Predating
Morgan
Grand
affair,
Lodge.
But I also don't think that they had something written either. It was mostly word of mouth.
potentially.
So that old ritual is maybe in a sense gone.
yeah, I think we need to.
And
go
all you're
and,
left is with the images and stuff. But that's all because of the Morgan affair.
yeah,
It was changed. It was
Yeah.
in many cases it was just. I mean, think about it. Morgan affair happens. Your lodge goes dark.
Mhm.
That Mason, do you think he went and searched another lodge? No, they all went underground.
yeah.
So now, I mean, perfect example compared to this COVID thing. How many Masons are going to come back to lodge and be like, I don't remember my part, and have to go through the book because they don't remember the ritual because they've been dormant for a year. You get what my point is
Yeah.
now times that by. I mean, how long did the Morgan affair till you started seeing a Masonic bounce back?
Yeah.
10, 12, 14 years? So,
I think a lot of those like symbolic photos and stuff that popped up, a lot of those were just part of the propaganda machine, right? A lot of those came out of, I think, the anti-Masonic party and
Sure.
stuff. Not all of it was from Duncan's Ritual Monitor, but
Right.
some of it was. But yeah, we definitely have to do some homework and do a subsequent episode on
be interesting.
how this affected the Connecticut.
I should have. Hey, Raph, if you're listening, reach
It was
out to
not.
our.
It's almost-
I said if. He'll
Hold
listen
his feet
eventually.
up. He listened.
He'll listen tomorrow. Reach out to the Grand Almoner, Andrew Melillo. I bet that he'd be a great guest to have on to talk about this stuff. He knows his stuff, and he's got a passion for the history. So if we wanted
Right.
to get into not the ritual itself, but the history of the ritual and any changes that may have occurred pre-post, Raph, get on the Grand Historian.
Right. So I have a question. And I just thought about this while we're talking about the history and everything. But George Washington's lodge chair is actually in the George Washington Masonic
I
Memorial,
think it's
correct?
one in
Yeah,
Arlington,
DC, yeah.
right? Yeah.
But he was never a worshipful brother. He was just a brother.
I think Washington was master, not grandmaster.
Right.
I
don't
think he's
he was a
worshipful.
Oh,
brother.
okay.
Yeah, I think he
worshipful brother.
declined to be grandmaster.
Franklin was the Grand Master
Yeah.
of Pennsylvania.
Right. That's right. Okay, so then that makes sense of his chair. Sorry, I just sidetracked
no
there, but I'm trying to think of some other things that would possibly have been changed if Morgan affair never happened. I can go right off the top 3 things. Okay.
Mhm.
Joseph Smith, William Morgan, and the other guy would still be alive.
Well, they would have. They would have had
They would have lived a
extended
full
lives, yeah.
life.
Yeah. At least that another 15 to 20 years on that.
That woman is the devil.
Yeah, Lucinda wouldn't have been cast in quite such a negative light, most likely. Also, I think in general, Masonry in this country probably wouldn't be as secretive, right? Because we can talk about it in a worldwide context, but even if World War II played out the exact same way after the Morgan affair,
Mhm.
here in the US, the only thing that changed Masons' opinions on whether or not to promote their and be proud, outwardly proud of their affiliation with the craft was the Morgan affair.
Right.
So if that didn't happen, you know, there would probably be a lot more members around because
Right,
people
right.
would be a lot more overt about saying, hey, you know, here's the deal with Masonry. You don't have to have had a father or a grandfather or any man in your lineage that was a Mason. You just go and you ask.
Well, I also
We don't
think,
ask you.
and I also think to that note as well, you wouldn't see as much conspiracy shit on the internet
Yeah. Well,
that is out there. Because I mean,
people are always going to make up.
You're still
gonna-
conspiracies
yes.
about things,
But
it
it's
wouldn't be
harder to
as-
do when it's more open.
Yep.
Mhm.
It might just be more of like a these guys are kind of like bourgeois, like, you know, whatever. It's a rich man's club type conspiracies versus these guys are evil and worshiping Satan and stuff,
Right.
because that all that nonsense came out of the anti-Masonic party.
Yes. And yes, pretty much the anti-Masonic party and some aspects of the church. But I mean, I don't think the church really took on Freemasonry too hard.
Yeah, and I think
I
that was a. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, I think it was more of the what's the word I'm looking for? Where you defame, I guess you could say, I think it was the anti-Masonic party that really defamed Masonry here in the States. Although you do have in Europe where it's very secretive, more so in Europe than it is here.
Well, in Europe, a lot of those countries were involved in the Second World War.
I was gonna say.
You know, the Nazis occupied a lot of those countries. So, I mean, in France, yeah,
Yeah.
it's probably a tradition.
And they saw it firsthand, and they're like, "Well, we can't let that ever happen again."
Yeah, because a lot of those people got carted off to concentration camps in those occupied countries if they were affiliated with the fraternity. So I totally get that.
Sure.
But yeah, here in the U.S., I mean, we were proud of our affiliation with the fraternity up until that point.
Right.
It would be interesting. I think membership would be,
Oh,
I mean, we'd still be in a decline right now just because that's the way that society moves,
is,
right?
mhm.
But I think we would have started from a much higher baseline.
Right.
And
Joe,
that would have
you had
changed
something?
things.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think as far as tying in Freemasonry with devil worshipping, I think it was the Morgan affair and the anti-Masonic party that kind of brought about the whole tie between Freemasonry and Baphomet. That was published in one of the
yes.
anti-Masonic newspapers or
Pamphlets.
magazines of the time. See, pamphlets are the devil. I think it actually was a pamphlet, but had a picture of Baphomet right on the front, and that's where the ties to devil worshipping really came in, because you already had the public tide turned against us. So then it was like a free for all. Let's pile on. Let's do this. Let's do that.
Right.
And I think that piece with the Baphomet, it's just, for those that don't know, it's like I think it's a woman's body with a goat's head with these big old horns but wings, and it's almost like that what the guy had in his post on the Illuminati.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very similar to that, and yeah, that freaks people out, especially then. Like, don't
Right.
forget,
They were still
it's
very
early
religious.
1800s. You
Right.
still had a lot of those puritanical values that that were still instilled there, and people would freak out over stuff like that.
I would love to one of these days, well, not one of these days, maybe on Thursday or next Sunday or something, we will dig into Baphomet. We'll get into the real deep esoteric stuff, because I have a lot on Baphomet that that I've studied with the Knights Templar, because that's what was used to demonize the Knights Templar. They said that they worship Baphomet. Funny thing is that there are other Christian knights that when they were writing in their journals during Crusade were talking about Baphomet in a completely different text of what it was later depicted. And it wasn't until I think it was, don't quote me on this, but I believe it's 1851 where you first see the first depiction.
It's a pretty
Of-
specific date for.
Yeah, I think it was
People quote you.
1851 where an artist finally drew what he conceived as Baphomet.
Right.
So, I mean, 1851 to Knights Templars around
Pulling it up,
13. Oh, I don't even know when they got.
Templars were like 1307-ish. Yep.
Yeah, 12 to 13.
That's when the Inquisition started.
Yeah,
And that's when Baphomet appeared in the trial transcripts.
right. So
1307. And then 1856 is when it came up with that Eliphas Levi, however you pronounce his name. Then that's where the half human, half animal, male and female, good and evil, on and off.
again, this is
Pretty
all
close.
this is all freaking years down the road, and it's just an image that's thrown around to demonize certain people and certain groups.
I'll throw the image up on the page.
Perfect. James Delaney. Albert Pike is also was a huge contribution to the crackpots and conspiracy theories.
Because of his writings, I think is what
Because of
he's-
his
that's where
writings,
he's
yes,
going, yeah.
but he was a huge contribution, because those who are looking to find something wrong will pick out certain parts of things.
Yeah.
Kind of like on media today. They pick out certain things out of an excerpt or something somebody said
Yeah. to
in
fit
order
their
to
narrative.
fit their narrative.
Yep.
So if you read Morals and Dogma, which by the way is an extremely tough
Yeah,
read,
well,
I've
see,
said
that's the
before.
thing. Nobody wants to read
Nobody
that
wants to
cover
read
to
it. They're
cover,
just
so they're just like, oh, here's half.
Find this word,
Oh,
find
they
that
said
word.
Lucifer. He said Lucifer.
Yeah.
Just Joseph Schultz. As long as it has a woman's body type that's good enough for a Marine. Nice. Real nice.
Yeah, as long as it's half
Real
woman.
nice.
The rest can be goat. We don't care.
Awful.
Awful.
Schultz brothers are awful.
They are terrible. But I mean, realistically, if we're breaking balls here, I mean, half goat, half woman. I mean, Marine and Mason. It's
Yeah,
pretty-
it's
right?
right up your alley.
This is
like
a joke.
children in the
We
room.
are only joking.
Somebody's going to take these transcripts out of
yeah. This is how it
We're
happens.
going to be responsible for the fall of.
You're gonna see a
Freemasonry.
picture of me up there. Georgia the devil.
Yep. If it wasn't for that George Mudgery, Freemasonry would
Joe and Ken are evil too.
Yeah.
Anyway, Morgan Affair. We'll get back onto that. So the anti-Masonic Party, that was directly involved around what happened with the Morgan Affair, right? That's pretty much where they got
Mhm.
their rise, because Masons are all in it for themselves and protecting one another, this, that, and the other thing. We got to take these guys down. So if that had never happened, yeah, like you were saying, it wouldn't be this negative, not as much as a negative sentiment around, basically Freemasonry in itself. You wouldn't have had a lot of the members and lodges disappearing. I would even go on to say is that I think you were saying before, well, our membership is on the decline now. I would challenge that, because I think that Freemasonry in itself being out more in the open would have
Mhm.
jumped into the technology age
Yeah.
much sooner than what it has. I mean, realistically, when
Yeah.
did Freemasonry really start going full on technology?
Like the mid 2000s, like,
You think so?
2010 and that kind
I'd
of
say
area.
around 2010, 2012,
Yeah.
roughly, is when it really started
Well, that's
to.
when we started having membership management systems and
Right.
well-maintained email lists and
Understand, though, that's usually the Grand Lodge now. Now, this
Yeah.
little small ass lodge like Morningstar, they didn't have anything technology based. And as a matter of fact, when our former treasurer, Worshipful Brother Dick Libby,
Yep.
handed all of the treasurer's stuff to Worshipful Brother Earl when he took over the treasurer's desk, brought
it
it
was
in
all paper.
all paper,
Yep.
stocks, bonds in a Walmart bag.
Yep.
So nothing was technology based.
Well, so you're arguing that there would have been, because membership wouldn't have declined, it wouldn't have been whatever at the same level today, had the Morgan Affair not happened, that we would have hit some kind of critical mass where there would have been, we would have tracked technologically along the same trajectory as any other organization, right?
I
We
think
would
so.
have joined the digital age earlier and thereby attracted even more members.
Correct.
From a
And
younger demographic. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I could get behind that. It's hard to tell, right? Because I mean, when you hit a certain level of membership, there are intangibles. There are things that happen that aren't just due to how many people you have. You hit a certain percentage of the population that have a favorable opinion about Masonry, and all kinds of interesting things can happen.
you're getting your ass beat up on the live.
Why? What did I do?
Ken is?
Oh, yeah.
Because
Greg
my hair is
Schultz.
perfect.
Ken looks like the water boy.
Fucking
Ken Doverini. Water sucks. It really, really sucks.
This is a Brady jersey.
Joseph Schultz. Maybe for Halloween, Ken can be Clint Eastwood's character, the Pale Rider. Jim Stelvini. Mama said I'm the Korg. Greg Schultz, the Paler Rider.
Oh, it's autumn in Connecticut. All right, I haven't seen the
Ken-
sun in a while.
Ken makes bleach look dark.
I hate you people.
You don't often get beat up like that.
No,
it's
I
not
know. It's
often,
like-
but when they do,
It comes
like,
in waves when they do.
it's like it's like a solstice. Comes twice a year.
I keep my mouth shut and try to be quiet over here in the corner. You guys pick this up.
Truth be told, you've actually been very informative, and you don't really take shots at other people. So I don't know where all of a
on
sudden.
Discord I do. I don't do it live. I don't think that's
Well, and
in good taste.
let's be honest. Other than that time that the light through the window bleached him out and made him look like what was that movie?
Twilight.
Oh,
Was it
Twilight.
No,
yeah.
the albino guy with powder.
Powder,
He looked like powder that day. Other than that, like Ken's been getting outside every day, and he's actually not nearly as pale as he was, say, back in January, February.
I've been
What is hashtag GG?
gangrene.
Oh, that's
It's got to be
Devaney's game.
gangrene.
Yeah.
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 Is he winning?
Yeah,
He's
Greg
winning.
Schultz tagged it as well. Oh, yes.
Well, they used
go
to be
ahead.
part of the original.
Shameless plug time.
Oh, so we mentioned Worshipful Brother Ken mentioned how he takes his shots on Discord, which is only available to our Patreon members, where you could become one for as little as $3 a month, where you'll get exclusive access to Patreon content, which we need to put some more on. We have some
Mhm.
ideas for
Yes.
for some things. But in addition to that exclusive Patreon content, you get access to a Discord page, which has all lovely kinds of channels. It's like we've taken it to the next step. It's like when I was a kid, there were 4 channels, and then you probably had like 15, and now everybody has 300. We're building our channel, so there's quite a bit there. And in addition to all that, you will receive the elusive but yet confirmed Gold Tone, the Freemasons podcast pin that you may see coming up soon on a Fox News or Fox Business Channel
That would be
interview.
nice.
So we're hoping that happens because Brother Art Del Cueto's got his the other day.
So we have a new logistics coordinator, is what you're saying.
So,
Yes,
and on top of that,
one that
if,
could actually spell logistics.
Yeah, nice.
if Brother Art does wear the pin on Fox News, there will be a meme put up. Obviously,
Yeah.
and people will start searching for the Freemasons podcast,
And
and
then we start selling them.
then we start. No,
As seen on.
Then we get affiliated with Baphomet.
no. Then I'm thinking we start doing other stupid shit, like we include Puppet George on some things,
Okay.
and have some fun with it.
He made a little appearance last episode.
He
People
did.
liked it. People did like it.
Joseph Schultz. I've been beating up George on Facebook, but he doesn't know it because
That's true. You have been
Yes,
getting kind of roasted
yes,
on the community page.
because
I
I'm
think it's funny how I have to send you pictures
Damn.
of things that happen on Facebook just so you can share it.
yes.
'Cause I don't want you to think like we forgot about you.
I don't care. Like
There's some mean things that happen.
hopefully one day Zuck will take me out of Facebook jail for doing absolutely nothing wrong. That's
Is
right.
this
He
like
did.
a 30-day ban, or do you
No,
know?
this is from what I can tell.
he's
It's
got a
permanent.
lifetime
It's
ban.
permanent.
It's permanent. It's
For
permanent
what?
because we
He
covered
doesn't
it the
know.
last episode.
He doesn't know.
Wow, that's
He was never given a reason.
I was
why.
never given a reason, but I do know that many other of my other organization that I belong to were kicked off of Facebook along with me, and
Really?
they have no idea when they're coming back either. But
Your banning on Facebook gets as many mentions per episode as Patreon.
yeah.
So we're gonna have to
seriously.
look to combine the two.
no, you know what they have?
Three things you can count on: a shameless plug of Patreon, and George
Yeah.
saying how he got banned from Facebook.
Good, and you know what
Hashtag
I
I
do
stand
know?
with George.
Yeah, hashtag I stand with George, and or
Hashtag I kneel with George because if I stood, it'd be too.
Oh, you fuck! Oh,
All right, let's get that up there.
All right, that was good.
It's a
All
long
right.
hashtag. but we can
That
make
was
happen.
good.
Why are you taking a knee? Are you supporting some more? No, I'm supporting George. I'm just getting down to his level.
Son of a bitch. All right. Very nicely done. No, everybody write to Zuck and say why'd you throw Georgie off? Didn't do anything wrong.
Morgan Affair.
We'll build our own social network with
Oh,
you know
God.
whatever criteria.
You know what,
we
though?
want.
Now if I ever do get back on Facebook, I'm gonna take a picture with just seeing this part of my head. That's my cover page. Free George.
You're like the opposite of the neighbor on what was that Tim Mellon show, Home Improvement, where you had the neighbor where you could only see him from
Yeah,
here up
Wilson.
over the fence.
Oh,
All we're going to be able to
Wilson.
see is your shoes under the fence, and it's a 4-foot fence.
You're a roll today.
I'm good today, and I'm not even drinking.
Oh my god. Oh, and
Now I'm taking fire.
No.
Oh, okay.
That's me.
Greg Schultz. Come back to Facebook as Ken Shadow.
Let's get back on the Morgan Affair.
He's old. He remembers that show, The White Shadow. It'd be just like that.
Oh my god.
How about that Mr. Independent?
Joseph Schultz, come back to Facebook as Puppet George.
They won't allow you to use fake name. We've tried to set one up. before.
Yes, I know.
Well, is it all tied to email address?
I could just
It does, but
Just use another one.
I've tried to set up a Puppet George page with a different email, and
Oh,
it just sends you something like that's not your real name. Blah, blah, blah.
oh, it uses like freaking machine learning or something.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Well, it also goes by your phone number too. If you're using it, sticking
Yeah.
a phone number in.
Let's
so.
not teach people to violate the terms of service.
We could
of
just make
Facebook.
it
We
French
don't
and make it Georges Papet. Put a little
Papet.
accent aigu over that thing, and you're good to go.
Georges Papet. I like that.
So we're gonna
We'll,
go.
we'll put the little wig on him and shit. Nobody will recognize him.
I'm getting looks from the peanut gallery. I'm like, what are you talking about? Accent aigu. What do you know about French? I know French. accent aigu, accent circonflexe,
I
and
think it's
there's the third one.
circumflex, Yeah.
The
That would be
circumflex,
the-
I think, is the double one, right?
Yeah.
See?
Yeah.
And I know in 1984, that's when I took French. When I got in trouble, I had to write the date up on the board a lot.
I was 2.
Yeah, whatever.
1984.
Douche. That's a Rule 1
I
violation.
was 2.
That's a Rule 1 violation.
What did you just get out of college? It was just
In 84, I was in middle school.
He was learning French when you
You were learning French in
bed.
middle school?
Yeah.
I did too.
That's advanced for my age.
Yeah, I did 2 years in.
Oh wait,
middle
no, I
school
did
and 4
too.
Years in high school.
No, I did. No, I didn't do it in high school. No. I didn't take any foreign language in high school.
Then I
only
took a
took
year in college too. I had like 8 years of French, and I can't remember any of it.
I took Spanish design for law enforcement personnel in college. So I could
Jesus
say things
Christ.
like the man inside has a knife. There's an accident
Oh,
over
the
there. I
hard
could
hit.
say
Now
this.
go away! I insult you for a second time.
And my Spanish teacher was a public defender in the Bronx.
What was that?
So the
that was
stuff
from
that-
Wow.
Monty Python and Search for Holy Grail.
Nobody watches Monty Python.
What?
Nobody watches Monty Python. It's like who listens to Rush.
I mean, we do. I also listen to Rush.
Sure.
Monty Python
I
and Search for
celebrate their entire catalog, man. They're-
Okay.
You're probably a
Wait.
Pink Floyd guy too.
I am. It's my favorite
What
band.
about Benny Hill? That was
Benny Hill's hysterical. I'll give you Benny
Hysterical?
Hill all day long every day. That was his father that he used to slap around in the head. That's the legend. The little old guy that he'd slap on the top of the head.
Yeah.
The urban legend is that's his dad.
Oh,
I don't know. I've never
Oh,
confirmed it. I remember Hill's Angels though. His little dancing troupe that used to come out. Very impressionable for an 8-year-old boy.
all right. Let's get back to the Morgan.
Good thing I had my
Morgan.
husky Toughskins on. Me and Raph sitting there watching Benny Hill wearing husky Toughskins.
I don't even know what the
No
hell
idea
those-
what he's
No,
talking
no,
about now.
no.
Toughskin were jeans for boys that had double reinforced knees and ass, so that if you were like playing around outside, you wouldn't rip them up. But husky was what they
Oh.
back then. Husky was the relaxed fit, because if you were a fat kid, they didn't say, "Well, you're a fat kid." They're
Oh,
a little
yeah, the
husky.
term was husky.
He's a little husky.
That's interesting.
Old people will know.
Wonder if they still make these things, because my kid took a spill today in the street and got all kinds of road rash and stuff and was wearing shorts. I mean, he needs
He needs Toughskins.
jeans with like patches.
That's what
to
Toughskins were.
reinforce. All right, maybe that's why
Look them up.
kids are weak these days.
I bet you if you went to like Dickies or something,
They're taking
okay.
too much damage. They don't need to. I'm gonna.
We're talking about the Morgan affair.
I was actually thinking about
Yeah.
the movie campaign popped in the head when they were talking about. Remember they on this the first thing that the Will Ferrell's character did was when he was in school he replaced the gyms, the outside playground. Remember it was all jagged and stuff, and he pulls up his shirt and he's got all
Never seen it.
scars. Never seen the campaign?
Nope.
Oh my god!
Well, we were probably on Facebook.
Yeah, we're just
Oh,
being normal citizens.
Oh boy! In a world where Toughskins don't exist any longer, the Morgan affair didn't happen.
anyway,
You think any of our symbols would have changed had the Morgan affair not happened?
mm,
Like some of the more obfuscated symbols.
I think maybe the G wouldn't have been added.
Really?
When was the G added? Do we
I
know?
believe that was when
Let's see.
Masonry came to the United States. It was added,
Was it?
but it wasn't.
I thought it was
Yeah.
added.
It's not used in Europe.
I don't think it was used all past the. I don't think it was even used during
Oh,
the.
the Civil War. Yeah, the
Civil
Civil
War.
War didn't use the G.
No, that's what I'm
Um,
saying.
Yeah, so maybe it was
Came to
a
the
more
United
recent
States
thing.
somewhere between 1730 and 1768.
The J.
So
the G.
that would have been prior to the Morgan.
Really?
Yep.
All right. Maybe I'm wrong then.
Hmm.
I thought the G came after was added after the Civil War. I didn't think they used it in the Civil War.
Not according to Wikipedia.
Oh, well, they're freaking.
Well, I'm just saying. I can only pull so many sources on the spot.
I'm
Right.
just thinking about some of the lapel pins and stuff that I have, and some of them are the ones that I wear when I want to be more subdued and not let everybody
Mhm.
know that I'm a Mason. But if there's a Mason kicking around, he'll know. And I'm wondering if those kinds of things would not even be prevalent, but like even exist
Mm.
had we not had to kind of like go underground, fade into the shadows.
So we actually did an interview with Leeds Light boys. They have a Leeds Light podcast,
Mhm.
Leeds Light Blues. And after the podcast was done, we were still Zoom talking and everything, and we were trading Masonic secrets back and forth in a sense of the different grips and signs that we have over here in the United States.
In a tiled conversation,
In a
with
tiled
mutual
con-
recognition
with
between your
yep.
constituents. Yeah, okay.
Thank you. No, but I mean, we were talking about it back and forth, and their signs and symbols are different than ours.
Yep.
So I have to wonder if prior to the Morgan affair, those same signs and symbols carried over here to the United States. But then after the Morgan affair, when lodges started coming back, you had a change in the certain signs and symbols. And the reason why I say that is because, again, we have this gap after the Morgan affair where Masons went underground. They didn't meet anymore. They're not all of them, but some of them didn't meet, which is why here you are in the future seeing certain lodges in the States potentially do a sign that's different from what the norm is.
Right.
Picking up what I'm talking about?
Yep.
Hiram One members?
Yep.
Oh, okay. So I was just thinking about that. Like, if that was the case, and the symbols and signs that they used back then, prior to the Morgan affair, how much different they would be today, if in fact they were changed after the Morgan affair.
That's a good point.
You know what I'm talking about? I mean, they did this whole new improved masonry after the Morgan affair. They changed up things. They added words. We know this for a fact.
Yeah, there isn't a lot of. I wouldn't consider it to be innovation, but it's that. Yeah, we've made some adjustments to our ritual, and you can see that there's precedent for that for sure. But yeah, how much was done as a result of the Morgan affair? I don't know. We've definitely got to talk to our grand historian about that. But yeah, man. I mean, I think a lot of things would be different.
Here's another thought for you, and this is something I thought about because I know that George Washington was given the opportunity to preside over a Grand Lodge of the United States of America. I think I've read that before. Okay. And he declined it and said the state should be individually run by each grand jurisdiction because that's what he believed in.
States' rights.
States' rights. And on top of that, we were the United States at that point, but we weren't really truly united. We were a bunch of different states that had a very loose overhead federal government, and each state kind of ran its own show for the most part, right? It wasn't until after the War of 1812 where you started seeing a national identity,
right?
Where you started seeing all the states
unified
right
system above.
So I have to wonder if Freemasonry continued to grow and was continued to grow in popularity, would we have seen a Grand Lodge of the United States of America?
I think it's entirely possible.
Yeah.
I think it would have gotten to the point where it was so large you might have had no choice but to have some type of national governing body. Yeah.
No, I think about that because, again, I think about the Knights Templar. They have the Grand Encampment of Knights Templar of the United States of America. That's the Grand Encampment. They are nationwide. They run the show. I have to wonder if, like, Freemasonry and Blue Lodge, in a sense, would have done the same thing.
If that had happened, we would have lost that ability to say, to I can't think of the word, but to yell back at the conspiracy theorists and say, well, there's no overarching,
absolutely,
global or countrywide body that oversees our activities. Like that's one
of our defenses,
cap,
Where's your brother Joseph Schultz? Do we have to beat the British a third time to make more changes?
It wouldn't hurt.
You're playing with fire there.
That's what fantasy football's for.
We do have a good go, though, back and forth with our English brothers, and they fire right back at us. It's a lot of fun in Discord.
That's true.
The other thing I was thinking of is, now my question would be, is Freemasonry's gotten this popular? Freemasonry is now a national overhead. Probably would have had a lot of money if that would happen. You would have had a lot of money in a Grand Lodge of the United States of America, right? If you had a Grand Lodge of the United States of America, I mean, I think about it in terms of the small lodges like our lodge, we're okay. Pretty penny. Hiram Lodge, big lodge in New Haven, so all that money is getting funneled into the Grand Lodge, right? Now, mind you, this is if our I don't think our membership would have, remember I was saying, wouldn't be in decline. It would be, if anything, holding steady or maybe a slight uptick, at least in my opinion, maybe a downtick, but you'd have a pretty good, I would say membership, I think, at this point.
Right.
You have to think of all that money that each Grand Lodge would be giving to an overhead to a national Grand Lodge.
So theoretically, they would still exist, right? You'd still have Grand Lodges, I assume, in each state, but they
Right.
would be paying some kind of percentage, some kind of per capita or something up to an
Yes.
overarching.
Now you think about
Mhm.
the amount of money that Grand Lodge would have, and then if you really want to have a conversation, conspiracy theorists, about potentially controlling certain things,
Yeah, I mean, you
that
could
would
have
be more dangerous than what you
Yeah.
conspiracy theorist idiots think today. Is if there was an overarching Grand Lodge of the United States of America, how much power and influence they would have.
Yeah, you don't have that argument.
You don't have that argument now, but
and the
if
other
it
piece too
was-
is if you had a national Grand Lodge,
Hmm.
Connecticut's a smaller state. A lot of the
Mhm.
New England states are smaller in size and population than some of our larger states.
Mhm.
Would you run into a potential issue where certain states were influencing the agenda of the National Grand Lodge, like your states, like a Texas, a California, a Florida, a New York?
That's a good question.
How would that change? It may or may not change the dynamic, but what if? Here's something. Think about it this way: if we had a National Grand Lodge, would Connecticut have had the freedom to become the first state to recognize Prince Hall Freemasonry?
Well, you would have to have something called an electoral college.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Electoral college.
how Freemasonry is set up. Definitely,
Are we here?
definitely affected how the country, our government was set up. So, to what extent would the innovations made on that governmental system affect Freemasonry? Where if you had an overall federal,
Would they have set it up exactly the
would
same
they have
way?
done it?
Potentially.
Yeah,
I would
make
like to think
sense.
that they would if they had the
Yeah.
foresight to do it that way.
I would agree.
All right, brothers. We're gonna have to cut this off because I have to get somebody to Thomaston to do something later. So,
But we just got on a roll.
worshipful brother Greg Schultz does ask, next episode, 150th, anything special planned?
Oh,
And
is
he
that
also
150
says-
already?
yeah.
Wow.
And he also says, if we had a National Grand Lodge and George was the Grand Master, would he be allowed on Facebook? Son of a bitch!
on Facebook.
No, we're gonna have to put our heads together for 150, huh?
Yeah,
I
we're
had
gonna have to come up
not.
with something.
I had not thought of anything. Maybe,
No.
maybe we'll dress up or something.
Oh, we've got several days to bat it around. And if you guys,
Yeah, if you have any
listeners-
ideas, let us
yeah,
know.
Definitely take any
Oh,
suggestions if you guys want to hear anything. But what do you say, brothers? You want to lock it up?
Let's lock it up.
All right. For the Freemasons podcast, I'm Right Worship Brother George Mudry signing off.
Worshipful Brother Joe signing off.
And Worshipful Brother Ken signing off.
Have a good night, everyone.
Good
Good
luck in
night.
fantasy football, brothers.
By the way, Patriots won 36-20.
Of course they did.
Wow.
Yeah.
Shit.
It was close
All
for
right.
the first half, but then second half they kind of put it away.
Good night, everyone.
Still got
Good
my
night, everybody.
Nostalgic Brady.